Today we are going to talk about Proverbs. Have any of you ever heard about Proverbs? Aiden, put it away. Or well, it's Proverbs, how you'd pronounce it, Proverbs. Proverbs are something that are going to be short. They're little sayings. They're short. Typically, they've been passed down orally, so through speaking through generation. Oftentimes, Proverbs are going to have a literal meaning and a figurative meaning. Literal means this is what I actually mean by something, and figurative is like I'm saying it, but I don't actually mean that. I mean something else by it. Does that kind of make sense? If it doesn't, you're going to hear some examples here in just a moment of it. So yesterday in your guys' read aloud, you heard and we read, Alfie, behave yourself and don't bark all day at squirrels, called Samuel. Ha! Laughed Jack. His bark is worse than his bite. Do you remember hearing that yesterday? That's going to be a proverb. So have you ever heard someone say that someone's bark is worse than their bite? Yeah. Very good. It's something that it's an idea that we're saying, but do we actually mean that? If an animal, such as a dog, is their bark ever going to actually be worse than their bite? Not if they actually bit, right? So what is someone trying to say if they say, hey, their bark is worse than their bite? Turn and brainstorm with your neighbor. Three, two, one. In the case of saying something like the bark is worse than the bite, what would we be saying about the bark? Joey. Exactly. It's a loud and annoying bark, right? But then what do we know about the dog and its likelihood to bite then? If their bark is worse than their bark. If their bark is worse than their bite, what are we kind of saying about their bite then? Kason. Now, are they probably likely to bite? No. My dog's right now, his bark is worse than his bite. He's yappy, and they're building a house behind us, and he just yaps all the time about it. But my dog to attack would be ridiculous. My dog to bite is a silly concept. Like, he nips, like at children, because they're our kids, but he's not going to bite anything. Our dog is like the biggest baby you've ever met. Mm-hmm. Right? So he barks all the time, but is he really going to be a dog that's likely to bite? Probably not. If you hear someone say that about like a human, your bark is worse than your bite, or his bark's worse than his bite, what are we kind of saying about that person? If it's more of a person now, is the person going to bite? No, turn and brainstorm your neighbor then. If we hear something like, oh, Chloe's bark is worse than her bite, what are we saying about that person? Turn and brainstorm with your neighbor. Three, two, one. If we're referring to a person and we say their bark is worse than their bite, Chloe, what am I saying about you?
You're saying that they talk a lot and it's really annoying.
Talk a lot, really annoying. And possibly even with that talking, what's the volume going to be like?
Loud.
Loud. Is it going to be like just, hi, how are you? Like super friendly? It's going to be kind of what? Kind of mean, right? Like, get off of that chair. That's that bark, right? Is it in a kind tone? Now, I might yell at you to get off your chair, but am I ever going to do anything about it?
Nope.
I mean, worst thing I'm going to do is grab Mr. Patel if you're not doing your job, right?
Oh.
But I can't do much about it. So that's that bite is worse than bark. Do you think Jack and Samuel think that Alfie, or especially Jackson, do they think Alfie is ever going to actually bite? No.
If he does bite back.
Can you guys think of a situation or a time you've been in where someone's bite has been worse than their bark? Haley. Or sorry, whose bark has been worse than their bite. I said it backwards again.
My brother.
Tell me about it.
He was yelling at me. He, in like really mean voice, but like it was kind of as hard. It was a really hard voice. He was yelling at me that I was eating out of his bowl.
He was yelling at you, kind of loud, high voice, eating you. But is he going to do anything about it? It's just that yelling, right? Grayson, tell me about when you've had someone's bark worse than their bite. Aiden, put it away.
My mom yelled at me for not feeding the dogs when I already did, and she thought I already did.
Right? So just yelling at you for something you've already done. So they're going to even do anything about it then?
No.
No. Fabulous. They're going to turn and tell your neighbor another example you can think of. Brainstorm a time where someone's bark has been worse than their bite at home with the parent as well.